You might not believe this, but some of the nuts we've been snacking on for decades, even the ones we thought were healthy, could be silently wrecking our erections after 60. Did you know that just 2 Brazil nuts a day might push your selenium levels dangerously high? Or that a handful of roasted macadamias could mess with your blood flow down there? And what about those flavored nut mixes? Are they really just an innocent treat? I learned the hard way that not everything in a shiny package is good for an aging body. Let me tell you what I discovered, because this might just change the way you snack forever. The hidden danger of cashews. I used to love cashews. I'd sit on the porch with a cold drink and a bowl of them while watching the evening roll in. They were crunchy, a little sweet, and made me feel like I was doing something good for my health. After all, cashews are healthy, right? That's what we were told for years. But after my 65th birthday, things started to change. I didn't have the same energy. And to be honest, intimacy with my wife began to feel different, not just emotionally, but physically. I blamed aging, stress, maybe even medications. What I didn't expect was that my beloved cashews might be part of the problem. Here's the truth I wish I had known sooner. Most store-bought cashews are roasted at high temperatures in industrial seed oils. That gives them their satisfying crunch, but it also damages the good fats in the nut. Worse still, some brands coat them in sugar or preservatives. The result? A snack that quietly fuels inflammation in your blood vessels and throws off your hormones. I didn't realize this until I read up on erectile dysfunction and blood flow. Turns out, our ability to have a firm erection depends on healthy circulation and balanced testosterone. And inflammation, especially in the tiny vessels that supply blood to the peniscan, silently shut that process down over time. Cashews, when processed the way most are, can contribute to exactly that kind of damage. The oils clog things up, the heat destroys nutrients, the sugar messes with insulin. And over time, it all chips away at a man's ability to feel like himself. If you're over 60 and still eating cashews regularly, I urge you to take a closer look. What seems harmless might be quietly working against your body, your confidence, and your connection with your partner. I wish someone had told me earlier, so I'm telling you now. Peanuts, the silent hormone disruptor. Growing up in the South, there was always a jar of peanuts on the counter. My dad used to carry a little paper bag of them when he worked the fields, and I picked up the habit myself. Salted, honey roasted, even boiled, I loved them all. I thought they were a good source of protein, cheap, tasty, and easy to find. But here's what I didn't know back then, and what I only recently started to understand. Peanuts aren't actually nuts. They belong to the legume family, and the way they're grown and stored can cause something called aflatoxin to form. It's a natural toxin, but it can be toxic to our bodies, especially with regular consumption over the years. For men our age, aflatoxins aren't the only issue. Peanuts are also high in omega-6 fatty acids. And while some omega-6 is fine, too much of it throws off our body's balance. It stirs up inflammation, not just the kind that makes your joints ache, but deeper inside the lining of your blood vessels. When that lining gets inflamed, it affects blood flow. And as I've learned the hard way, good blood flow is crucial for sexual function. Erectile dysfunction doesn't usually happen overnight. It's a slow, creeping change. You might notice less firmness, less drive. You tell yourself it's normal, but sometimes it's something you've been eating all along. Processed peanuts also come packed with oils that oxidize over time, especially if they've sat on a shelf for months. These oxidized fats can damage cells and worsen hormone imbalance. And for men past 60, hormone levels, especially testosterone, are already something we have to guard carefully. I stopped eating peanuts 2 years ago. It wasn't easy, old habits die hard. But within months, I felt a difference. Not just in the bedroom, but in my energy, my mood, even my sleep. Peanuts may seem harmless, but for men our age, they can be a quiet enemy. One handful at a time, they chip away at our vitality. Roasted macadamia nuts. The hidden cholesterol trap. I remember the first time I tried a macadamia nut. It was during a vacation in Hawaii over 40 years ago. Rich, buttery, and just a bit salty, they felt like a treat for someone who'd earned it. So when I started seeing them at my local grocery store, roasted and bagged, I thought, why not? They became a regular part of my evening snack. What I didn't realize back then is how those roasted macadamias were affecting me on the inside. Especially after I turned 60, I noticed changes: slower blood flow, lower energy, and a subtle but steady decline in bedroom performance. I brushed it off. But the truth was hidden in those golden, crunchy bites. You see, most store-bought macadamia nuts are roasted in industrial oils. That heat and oil combination turns their natural fats into something far less friendly. Good fats become oxidized. And oxidized fats are no friend to the heart or to the arteries that matter most for a man's confidence. To make things worse, those roasted nuts often come loaded with salt. I didn't pay it much mind at first, but over time, that extra sodium raised my blood pressure. And high blood pressure doesn't just affect your heart, it restricts the production of nitric oxide. That's the molecule that helps blood vessels relax and expand. Without enough of it, blood can't flow freely to the smallest arteries in the body, including the ones responsible for achieving and maintaining an erection. It was humbling to learn that something so small, something I thought was healthy, could be working against me. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly, like a leak under the floorboards. When I finally cut out roasted macadamias, my numbers improved. But more than that, I started to feel better, stronger, more like myself again. If you're over 60, I'd say think twice before reaching for those roasted macadamias. They might be delicious, but your body and your blood vessels deserve better. Brazil nuts, the selenium time bomb. I used to think I was doing something smart when I ate a few Brazil nuts every morning, just 2 or 3. They were packed with selenium, and I'd read somewhere that selenium was good for men, especially for the prostate and testosterone. At my age, that sounded like a win. But I didn't realize how quickly too much of a good thing could turn into something harmful. Brazil nuts are indeed rich in selenium, so rich, in fact, that eating just a couple a day can push your selenium levels far above what's considered safe. I didn't feel the effects right away. But over time, I noticed things shifting. My energy dipped, my focus was off, and slowly my drive started to fade, both in daily life and in the bedroom. I chalked it up to aging. That's what most of us do. But then I got my blood work done. My thyroid was acting up. My testosterone had dropped, and my doctor asked, "Have you been taking any supplements?" I told him no, but I mentioned the Brazil nuts. His eyebrows went up. Too much selenium can damage your thyroid, throw your hormones out of balance, and hurt sperm quality. For a man over 60, that's a heavy price for something so small. And the worst part? It builds slowly, over weeks and months. You feel more tired, you feel less like yourself, and you might never suspect that it's coming from a handful of nuts. I stopped eating them immediately, and I started reading more closely about what I was putting into my body. Within a few months, things began to level out again. Brazil nuts aren't evil, but they're powerful. Too powerful to be part of a daily routine, especially for older men trying to protect their strength, balance their hormones, and avoid the slow slide into erectile dysfunction. If I could go back, I would have treated them more like medicine than food, something you use carefully, not something you snack on without thinking. Flavored mixed nuts, the sweet-coated killer. I remember keeping a jar of flavored mixed nuts right by my recliner. Sweet chili, honey-glazed, barbecue, whatever was on sale. It felt like a little treat at the end of the day. Something to enjoy while watching the evening news or waiting for the grandkids to call. The crunch, the flavor, the comfort, it all felt so harmless. But over time, I started to feel off. My blood pressure crept up. I felt more sluggish. And slowly, without realizing it, intimacy became harder, not just emotionally, physically. I thought it was stress or just getting older. Turns out, those flavored nuts weren't just nuts. They were soaked in oils I couldn't pronounce, coated in sugar, and packed with preservatives meant to keep them fresh on shelves for months. What they did inside my body was another story. Those oils, especially the industrial seed oils, fuel inflammation deep in the blood vessels. The added sugar sends insulin out of balance. And the salt? That pushes your blood pressure higher with every handful. When you combine all that, it's a recipe for disaster, especially for the tiny arteries responsible for blood flow where men need it most. You don't feel it after a day, or even a week. But give it 6 months, a year, 5 years, and the damage adds up. The body becomes inflamed. Hormones start to shift. Blood vessels stiffen. And before you know it, erectile dysfunction creeps in quietly, but steadily. It's not easy giving up something that brought comfort, but comfort shouldn't come at the cost of vitality. I switched to raw, unflavored nuts, instead simple, whole, and clean. It wasn't just about avoiding bad ingredients. It was about giving my body a chance to heal, to remember how it used to feel. Flavored mixed nuts may look harmless, but for older men, they can be a sweet-coated trap, one that chips away at strength, desire, and connection one handful at a time. Nuts to eat for sexual vitality recovery. After I cut out the roasted and flavored nuts, I wasn't sure what to eat anymore. I didn't want to give up snacking altogether, just needed something that didn't work against my body. That's when I started learning about raw, unprocessed nuts. Not the ones in shiny bags with sugar and salt, just the plain ones. And I have to say, they've made a quiet but powerful difference. Walnuts were the first I added back. They're rich in something called L-arginine. It helps the body produce nitric oxide, which is essential for blood flow. And when blood flows better, especially to the smaller vessels, it shows up where it matters. I didn't expect a miracle. But within a couple of months, I noticed more strength, better energy, and a subtle return of confidence. Then I added almonds, just a handful in the morning. They're full of vitamin E, magnesium, and zinc. At this stage in life, testosterone doesn't just take care of itself. You've got to support it. These little nutrients help do that, and they protect the lining of the blood vessels too. That's important, especially if you've had years of inflammation building up from processed foods. Last came pistachios. I'll be honest, they were my favorite as a kid, but I'd stopped eating them after all the sweet coatings took over the shelves. Now, I buy them raw and shell them myself. It slows me down, makes me mindful, and they're more than just tasty. They've been shown to improve blood lipids and support erectile function. That's not a sales pitch. That's what studies found, and I felt it firsthand. It didn't happen overnight, but slowly my body started to feel more balanced. Less heaviness, more vitality, and not just physically but emotionally too. Because when a man feels strong again, everything else feels a little lighter. These raw nuts, walnuts, almonds, pistachios, they're simple, honest, and at our age, that's what the body needs. A call to action for men over 60. If there's one thing I've learned in these later years, it's that small choices can carry big weight. What we eat, what we keep in the pantry, what we snack on when no one's looking, it all matters more than we think, especially when it comes to keeping our strength, our clarity, and yes, our intimacy. For most of my life, I never thought twice about the nuts I ate. I just grabbed what tasted good. But now, after digging deeper and seeing the quiet damage they can cause, especially to blood flow, hormones, and energy, I've made a change. And I'm glad I did. Getting rid of those harmful nuts-flavored mixes, roasted macadamias, even peanuts and cashews wasn't hard. I just stopped buying them. What surprised me was how quickly I felt the difference once I replaced them with better choices. Raw walnuts, almonds, pistachios, whole, uncoated, real. It's not about giving up pleasure. It's about choosing the kind that gives something back. These simple swaps helped my body recover from years of slow wear and tear. I felt stronger, lighter, more myself again. You don't need pills. You don't need special powders or complicated diets. Just honest food and a little consistency. That's what helped me. That's what gave me back the confidence I thought was gone for good. If you're over 60 and feeling like something's off, energy, drive, connection, look at what's in your kitchen. Look at what's in that snack drawer. You might find the answer is simpler than you think. It starts with awareness, then a decision, and finally, a quiet shift in how you care for yourself. That's all it takes to turn things around, one small, honest step at a time. So, what we snack on matters more than we realize. The wrong nuts can slowly drain your energy, mess with your hormones, and quietly trigger erectile dysfunction without you even knowing it. But the right ones? They can help you feel stronger, more alive, more like the man you used to be. Take a look at your habits. Make the change start small, but start today. If this video gave you something to think about, leave a comment, share it with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. We've got more stories, more truth, and more heart to share in the next one.